Hi everyone, welcome to Junket. I'm Evan Schwartz, and today I have an interview with an assistant director named Jennifer Truelove. I actually worked with Jennifer on a show which will remain unnamed, but I think she's kind of a badass, and she's worked on amazing things like Synecdoche, New York, Spielberg's War of the Worlds, Quiz Show, Vox Lux, so much more in different positions. She's been a second, she's been a first, she's done prep. I used to work on sets, so I have an idea of how all this works, but let me be honest, I fucking hated it. Why do you think I have a podcast now? But through all the hell and the sleepless nights, it's just how movies are made. So I wanted to interview Jennifer to talk about how a set is run, which I feel like is something a lot of people aren't fully aware of. So she breaks down the terminology and gets into the nitty-gritty of it, and I think it's really interesting. So here is my interview with Jennifer Truelove, and I hope you enjoy. So, hello, Jennifer. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure.
So you have this long career as an assistant director, and explain to me, so you oscillate between second assistant director and then first assistant director. So kind of like, I mean, what was your entry point into this career?
My entry point was when I was 17. For some reason, I just thought, I think I'm going to work in movies. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if I was watching a particular movie or what it was, but I just got this thought when I was 17 years old that that's what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, what are the steps? I guess I should go to New York. I grew up in Maryland. So I went to school in New York. And while I was there, I'm very lucky. I understand my privilege. I was able to work because my parents were paying for my college, and I was able to work for free as an intern, which I do not, a practice I firmly frown upon now. I have realized people need to be paid for their work, but at the time, this was in the late 80s, early 90s. Thank you, I'm that old. That's what I did and how I formed a resume. So my senior year, I'm on campus, I'm working the campus job, and I hear that this movie Quiz Show, yes, that old, is scouting on the campus. And my coworker that I was working with, her mother ran PR for my school, so she had the address of the production office. So I went to the production office and I dropped off my resume that had all these internships on it, and they called me and they hired me as an intern. And then I, showed up and I had a brain and I was a valuable employee, and they hired me 3 weeks after I graduated from college. And then I just really worked to stay in touch with the people that I had met, and then it just escalates from there. Then you do the track, from production assistant on the set, because I was an office production assistant on Quiz Show, but I wanted to be on the set. So I went to to PA on the set. And then if you get your PA days together, you can start to second. And then if you're ready to move up, you can do key second work, and you can first AD. So it's just a progression. So, and some people are like, oh, I was a PA and then I made my own movie and now I direct, and that's absolutely fine. But that was my track.
So remind me, how many PA days is it to join the DGA?
When I did it, and I think it's still true, it's 600. And there's some percentage or some number that can be in prep, and then some that have to be actually shooting.
Right. Because, if I have to be perfectly honest, my feeling about working on set was like the hierarchies were kind of tough for me. Like I felt like, like it depends on the set you work on, but sometimes, you can get kind of beaten down as a PA. And
For
so
sure.
I'm curious, like, how you feel about that and what your experience was like as a PA, and
Oh,
kind of how you hold
yeah.
that power as an AD now.
It was super hard. And the only thing, I think this all the time, because if someone contacts me and says, do you mind sitting down and telling me how you did it? Because I want to do it too. I'm more than happy to tell them and be honest with them about PAing. But in the back of my head, I was like, I'm always like, this sounds awful. How did I do it? How did I make it through? And then I remember I was 24. You know, it's like when you're 24, you've got the youth and you just want to get towards a goal. And the good thing about, the DGA process is that there's a finite goal. It's this many days that I have to work. It was really hard. I stood on street corners in the rain for long periods of time, but I must have had such a drive in me and that finite goal that I just kept going. And being good at it really helped because I wasn't an additional PA as much as I was on staff. And when you're on staff, you can actually lean into certain roles and, have a steadier work so that you can work 40 days at a time instead of 1 and 2 and 3 here. So being an additional PA and working was really hard. And then being a staff PA, I mean, I was really stressed a lot of the time and not making that much money. 3 roommates, all that stuff, living in Hoboken, travel was hard. But my youth really helped. And just, having that goal ahead of me.
Absolutely. So what made you stick with it? What made you kind of fall in love with it?
It's actually funny. I remember a time when I wasn't going to stick with it. And it was when the second AD on a movie on the walkie asked the first AD what time they wanted the pigeons there the next day. And I just thought, I never want to be the person that has to worry about what time the pigeons are coming. So I left and I kind of looked at a couple of editing rooms. I thought editing might be something I would want to do. And then I just really missed the set. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the coolness of it, frankly. And editing was like 3 people, in a dark room. So I knew that wasn't for me. And the day I decided I wanted to go back to PAing, I got a job in Baltimore and my nephew was born while I was on that job. It was like, it was all meant to be. And I was able to spend time with him when he was a tiny baby. And so I just felt like it was really destined. And then I just learned, once I kept moving up in my positions or, different positions, that's when you find like more joy in it. And that's why I stuck with it. Cause I was like, I like seconding for a little while. Oh, maybe I'll start key seconding. Okay. I'm learning to like this. Okay. I don't like key seconding anymore. Let me go into first ADing. And then now I love first ADing, so I buckled down and I moved up and that's what made the difference. But it was, it's where I wanted to be.
So what the hell are all these jobs? Because there's like second AD, there's second, there's like there's keys, there's like
Yeah.
walkie PA, there's like all these different things that I think people are not really aware of.
Yeah.
So could you break down kind of all these
Yeah.
things?
So in the AD department, I'll start at the top of the pyramid of the AD department is the first AD. And then there's the key second AD. Then there's the second AD. And then there are additional second ADs, but that's not all the time. And I can explain that in a second. And then we usually have a staff of between probably at least 5, and then it could be up to 10, but it's hovering around 7 nowadays of staff production assistants. And then if on your bigger days, you'll call in additional set PAs. So the first AD is, and this is putting aside prep, because that's a whole different story of like what people do during prep. But on the set, the first AD is the person that understands all of the elements that are happening with all of the different departments, so that when it's time to say roll sound, they're the ones that do that, right? They are the person that's like, we are now ready. We have our actors, we have our props, we have our, the set is ready, it's lit, the cameras are up. So roll sound. So that's the first AD. The key second, now I should explain the reason that they're all called seconds instead of thirds and fourths is because the DGA has one set of rules for second ADs, but any of the seconds can do them. The additional second, the second, the key second. So that's all those rules are lumped under one thing and they can all supervise different things. In generally speaking, and this, by the way, is different in Los Angeles, so I don't want to speak for them, but in New York, generally speaking, the key second is in charge of getting the actors the information they need, getting them where they need to be, getting them through hair, makeup, and wardrobe, which we call the works. and then doing the call sheet for the next day. And it's not just typing. That's like, are the elements ready? Have I checked that this set is ready to go? Have I checked that this actor knows what they're doing? Have I checked, so when they fill out the call sheet, it's basically like, do we have all these elements and are they ready to go? So they'll spend most of their day doing that. The second, again, in general, in New York, is on the set, kind of the right-hand person to the first AD, communicating with the crew what's going on. And also they will set the background. And by set, I mean like literally say to them, you start here, you walk over there, you pick this up, you go over there. So to literally every single background actor, the second will set them. And then on the bigger days, you'll have an additional second come in, sometimes to help, generally to help with background. Could also be if you have a lot of actors that day. Some productions now have an additional second on staff all the time to handle the actors, which I think is a fantastic idea. That's a good trend. And then the PAs are the staff to help, and some responsibilities, like you mentioned, walkie PA. And yes, we'll say first team PA, walkie PA, and all these different terms, but I always like to say that we're a team, and some people have concentrations in certain areas. But so the team consists generally of someone who's called the first team PA, helping with the actors, getting them their meals and telling them when they're needed on set. You'll have someone with the background PA. They'll usually have a helper. The first team PA generally nowadays has a helper also who would be on staff. There's the walkie PA, who to me is like the co-key PA, because the key PA is the person that sets the lockups to make sure that the set is secure, people don't walk through or are quiet. They set the lockups, and they also hire the additional PAs. So that's the key PA. Now the walkie PA, yeah, they handle the walkies, big deal. If they're doing their job right, they could do that in like 15 minutes in the morning, and then they could be the co-key. That's how I see it anyway. What did I leave out? Walkie, background, first team. We usually have a paperwork PA, which there's a production report that needs to be produced. Now, LA would get really mad listening to this because they always have their I believe they put the seconds in base camp, and they also do the production report. But if you read the DGA rules, it says that the second ADs need to supervise the production report. So a lot of times we'll have a PA type it, and then it'll be approved and signed off on by the second. So, and then the paperwork person can also be the communication between the office and, if there's distribution of, goods or equipment or something like that, they can take charge of that and hand it off to the different departments. So was that too long-winded?
No, I mean, it's fascinating. It's like there's such a world, there's a village on set, just in the AD team. I mean, every department.
I know you'll see pictures of sets and there's like 80 people standing around. You're like, what are they doing? And sometimes, honestly, as a first AD, I'll look around and be like, what are all these people doing? But it's just a lot to do. And what I always say is we are spending a lot of money every day, and when you do that, you need to make sure that you have the so-called manpower to get it done swiftly, so people have big staffs, a lot of people to do a lot of different things.
Right. Like what always kind of bothered me about working on set is it always feels so life or death. It's like everything you do is like, you're going to die if you fuck this up. But it makes sense because so much money is going into every single day. It has to be like that.
It can be a lot of pressure. Personally, as a first AD, I don't want people that work for me anyway, or even around me, to feel like life or death. I want people to feel like they have the tools to do their best work. If I get upset on the set, it's because someone's not doing their best work and they haven't thought things through about what their responsibilities are, and they're fucking it up. And so like, that's what gets me mad. But if it's just like, come on guys, we gotta go, we gotta hurry, I have no time for that. Like, we're doing our best to plan the day. We hope it goes well. We're spending a lot of money at one time. We expect everybody to work hard, but it's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of pressure. And so I don't like to run a set that feels like what you're talking about, but you do recognize that that's what it is. We're spending a lot of money and there's a high expectations.
So like what in your experience, maybe you can name an example of a set or just an idea of one, but what makes for a really well run set as opposed to something that is really stressful and just not as good as something that is more well run.
Yeah. A director that knows what they're doing is extremely helpful in all aspects. If they are unprepared and they don't really understand what shots they want or what they need to achieve a certain scene, it slows everything down. It's really frustrating to the departments. Another thing that is really helpful for a good set is a great number one. And by that I mean the lead actor, who literally is, every actor gets a number on the call sheet, and that the person that's number one is generally the lead actor. And if you have a good number one who shows the other actors and the crew what kind of set they expect and want, that goes a long way. And like, I had Sutton Foster on Younger, and she's an incredible number one. She's like always on time. She knows her lines. She comes when she's called to the set, and she shows up with this can-do attitude and, you know, good outlook. And the other actors will see that and step the fuck up. You know, they're not going to stay in their trailer when they know Sutton's already coming. I would always joke with, if she would get to the set first before the other actors, I would go, Sutton wins, and she would like that. You know, she would enjoy it. And sometimes she would call it out when she would get there first, and about herself, she'd say Sutton wins. So it would always crack me up. So a good number one goes a long way. And then for me and my part of it, it's communication. I don't like hold things to my close to the chest as some kind of power play of like, I know something you don't. The more people know things, the better things are going to go. Even if it's a heads up that might not come true, people really appreciate it. So I am very free with my communication. And a little pet peeve of mine is like, I'll watch Project Greenlight and see a first AD with a walkie in their ear. And I think most first ADs have walkies, earpieces, and I do not. I barely have a walkie like hanging off of my belt, and sometimes I don't at all have a walkie, because the people that I should be talking to are right in front of me. You know, and I picture a director coming up to me and asking me a question, or the director of photography asking me a question, and I go, oh, hold on 1 second. Someone's in my ear asking for me. Like, what is that? You know? And a lot of times the people on the other end of the walkie are standing on some street corner 2 blocks away. So I'll see Project Greenlight and they've got the earpiece in, and it seems to me that they're talking to the people on the walkie instead of the people that need the information that are standing right in front of you, like the key grip and the gaffer, you know what I mean? So I like to communicate very clearly with the department heads. Here's what I know. Here's what could happen. So that's what I think makes for a good set.
Yeah, for sure. I just remember coming home and feeling like I'm still hearing voices in my head from.
Oh, walkies are terrible. Believe me, when I became a first AD and I realized that I didn't have to have one, I was like, hallelujah.
So I think many people actually have never heard the term first team or
Oh,
second
okay.
team.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
could
funny
you
how
kind
I
of
just
break
threw
down
out.
that
Yeah.
protocol?
Yeah. Actually, a funny story. So, you know, my first job was quiz show, and I was in the office, and I asked, I went to the set one day to drop off whatever had come into the office for the set. And I went up to the second AD and I said, do you think on some Saturday, because they were working Saturdays and I was working Monday through Friday in the office, I said, on some Saturday, do you think I could work on the set? So my very first day ever on a set was quiz show. I think we were in Queens. I think we were shooting like outside John Turturro's house or something like that. And I was green. I didn't know anything. You know, well, I knew what sides were because I had learned that in the office, and sides are the little script pages. So I knew what sides were, but everything else I didn't know what it was. So someone said, hey, can someone tell me where the water is? And I had heard the term first team on the walkie, and I thought it meant director. So I said, the water's near first team. Turns out first team are the actors. It's the team of actors called first team. And so the person was like, what do you mean the water is near the actors, all of them? So that was like an embarrassing moment for me. So the first team are the main actors. And then the reason it's called first team, because we use the term second team to mean the stand-ins that we use while we're lighting and setting up the camera. We use stand-ins to pretend they are the people. They have watched the rehearsal, they see where the actors are supposed to move, and then they recreate that for the director of photography so that they can set the light and cameras. So that's first team and that's second team. What's another terminology that I've been throwing around?
I'm trying to think. I think everything else is pretty explanatory,
Good.
but I think it is really, it's fascinating using like a second team. I've always kind of I mean, it makes sense, but the actors need to get into makeup and
Yeah, they don't have the patience. Honestly, actors, if they try and stand in for themselves, it's a disaster. It's always a disaster. They think they're going to do a good job, but we have to like, oh, can you turn to the right for a second? So we can check, the light, or see, can you move for a second so we can see behind you to make sure that that block is cleared? Whatever it is, they think they want to cooperate and do that, but they don't. They're on their phones, they're having a conversation with someone, they're not listening to us. Like, to me, second team is essential, to have a professional whose job it is to work with the camera operator and the DP to facilitate their best work. I think second team is great and
yeah,
important.
it's possibly one of the most unsung heroes. I mean, there's so
Totally.
many unsung heroes on set,
So
but
many. If you have a good second teamer, you're in great shape. If you have a good second team, like usually on TV shows we can only afford like 3 a day, so they'll be standing in for all these different kinds of people, but you get to know those 3 people, for the main actors. And if they're good, they can save you, it could add up to an hour in your day, honestly, if they pay attention or on the spot. So I love them.
so you've worked on sets like Synecdoche, that just have a billion moving
Yeah.
parts. I can't even imagine. And then you've worked on films like Vox Lux, which are much smaller. I think that was shot in like 20 or less days or something.
I feel like it was like 26. I have to be honest, in Box Lux, I only prepped that movie because it was always a thing that I was going back to Younger, this TV show that I'd been on for like 5 years, and they were going to start up. But Vox Lux was supposed to finish before then, but then Vox Lux got shut down after, I think we were on our tech scout. So right before we were going to start shooting, the money didn't come through. So they pushed like a couple of months. And I said, well, I can't come back. Younger is coming back. And they actually said, okay, I can find someone else to shoot it. Do you mind keep on prepping it? And I was like, sure. Because I love prep. I actually do. I think it's fantastic. And I love to be prepared. I mean, the reason I'm an AD is because like I'm this uber organized, anal person. And so prep is like right up my alley. I was like, sure, I'll prep it. So I prepped it. And then like right before they went to shoot, I took the new first AD around, showed them the locations, and gave him a sheet of paper that broke down the entire each and every shooting day as I saw it and the problems I foresaw and all this stuff. And I said, go with God. So I only prepped Vox Lux, and then Synecdoche, I was a key second on that. That was so hard. It was so hard.
I
It
would
was
love to hear about
rewarding.
that.
So I should send you this call sheet that literally says, because this was in the script as a header, it says warehouse inside warehouse inside warehouse inside warehouse. That is the name of one of the sets. So I would type this on the call sheet. So it was all, I don't, you have to see this movie to kind of know what I'm talking about, but it was very meta. It was like a life inside of a life inside of a life. So we had to keep track of people, all these extras aging and their clothes because they were reoccurring, but were they really aging? And Charlie doesn't really work in reality. So you couldn't just assume, oh, it's 20 years later, this guy will have aged 20 years. No, not in Charlie's world. That guy actually got younger. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't make assumptions like you normally can on a normal shoot about reality. So I have never before and never since on a job wrote memos to the actual extras that they could read and keep with them so that they could understand what we were shooting, where it is, what year it is, what I'm wearing, why we're doing this, because it was so complicated. I can't even read. I have like expelled the complications out of my brain because it was so weighing on me, but I still have those memos and I'll read them every once in a while and be like, I don't even know what I'm talking about here, but it was important at the time. And it required a lot of planning and a lot of people. You have to go to your locations department. Are you ready for this? You have to go to your hair and makeup people. Are you ready for this? And make sure that they have the manpower they need. That's part of ADing, to make sure that day is going to go smoothly, because we've talked to all the departments to make sure that they are prepared for what we're about to shoot. But yeah, Synecdoche was super hard,
Yeah, I
but I
mean,
liked it. There was a great producer, great production manager. I remember the first AD I loved working with. Charlie was really interesting and very, kind and accommodating and, and smart. And so, and Philip Seymour Hoffman was great. He and I would start, 4 a.m. with all his, he has prosthetics and things like that. I've never had a larger paycheck as a key second than there was 1 week on Synecdoche, because I think I had 4 out of 5 were double days, meaning I worked over 16 hours. And I think they forced my call maybe 3 of those days. So forcing call. Forcing call means that you don't get a long enough rest period in between finishing and starting the next day. So I'm supposed to get 9 hours of rest. I know that's awful considering you have to get home, rest, and get back to work in 9 hours. So I'm supposed to get 9 hours of rest. So if I wrap at 10 at night and they want me back at 5 a.m, that's forcing my call. So I get paid money for that. It's all in the DGA contract, dga.org. So I had a huge paycheck, but I was exhausted.
Yeah, it's one of those films that is so brilliant, and it speaks to the sheer will of humanity to build something like that, which is
It was incredible.
such a monolithic achievement.
We had a lot of prep to wrap our brains around just what the story was trying to say, and we had so many questions for Charlie because he was the only one that could answer him. You couldn't, like I said, you couldn't rely on reality. You had to literally go to Charlie and say, what do you want here?
So does that sounds very like intellectually invigorating. Is there any shoot you've worked on where you feel like the content of the show is just not good, or does the quality of a piece kind of affect your work ethic in any way?
I would say no. I'm really the sort of person who just works hard at what they're doing, without sort of caring about that kind of thing. I don't treat it any differently. The only way that I would behave differently, and maybe not work as hard or want to work as hard or deliver as well, is that if I feel like what I do isn't being respected. In that, I mean, I had a director literally like insult me and roll their eyes at me, and that kind of takes the wind out of your sails. Like, what am I even doing here? Why am I trying so hard? And that person, by the way, got me fired, which was extra shitty. But that will make me change how I work. But the content really doesn't. I mean, there are things I like to do and things I don't like to do. Like, I much prefer 30-minute comedies to the big movies now, because I feel like I've done my time, and honestly, just give me a restaurant scene, instead of blowing something up. But no, the content, like it's about the director for me a lot of times. And then when I'm first ADing, when I was a second, the UPM was very important to me, how that person treated my work, and and either supported or didn't, and how you get along with the staff, like that's the kind of things that make me work hard. The content is kind of less important. We're there to do a job. We're being paid to do a job. I'm going to do my darndest, but it's when you start to feel like you're not being, I don't even need to be appreciated. I just need respect. I just need a little bit of acknowledgement of what you do matters. That's all.
Is there any specific director you want to shout out as being kind of an exemplary example of their work ethic or something?
Oh, that's a good question. I should have thought about that more. I didn't think about that. I mean, I really I'm very lucky in that almost all of the directors I've worked with, I've had a good time, you know. And that's, I'm not saying that's vital or having a good time. I don't mean it like that. I mean it like it was a good experience overall in that we got along. Exemplary, I mean, who comes to mind is Miriam Shore directed, she's an actor on Younger, and she directed a couple of episodes and I was her AD both times. And I really love that because we're actually, you know, we're friends with each other and better friends now than I was her AD. And she was new, but she cared so much. And it was just fun, sort of, it was almost me leading her through it, even though she's the director. And she recognized that. And I tried to recognize that she's here for a reason because she's got the chops, you know? So whatever I could, it was like lifting each other up, honestly. And it felt amazing. And we had a lot of laughs. She makes a joke that she shot, you know, we would go to the sets in prep, you know, before anybody was there, and she would on her phone film me acting out all the roles. And she's like, I'm pretty sure I could edit the entire episode together just with you starring as everything. I was like, oh, okay, great, thank you. So that was really enjoyable because I had already known her as an actor for I think she started directing in season 5, and I had already known her all first 4 seasons and liked her. And then to see her direct, it was like I was proud and I wanted to help. And I remember she texted me one time right before she was going to start. She was like, hey, are you up in your office? I just have a question. I was like, yeah, I'm here. And she texts back, she goes, how do I direct? I was like, well, we'll get there. We'll get there. It's going to be great.
So the other thing I always wonder is ADing requires such a strong understanding of shot composition and how something's going to cut, because you have to communicate at all times to the crew where we're looking, what we can't see in the frame. Do you feel like you could direct a movie?
Yeah. I mean, that's the quick answer. Do I want to direct a movie? Unless I wrote it, and I'm not much of a writer, not really at all. Unless I wrote it, I probably don't have the drive to direct a movie. If someone called and said, we need you to direct this movie, I would feel totally comfortable doing that. Let's put it that way. What I do want to direct is an episode, at least an episode of a TV show that I'm working on for a while. And this is my COVID gut punch, but I was on the crew list and everything. I was going to direct an episode of Younger, season 7. And we were, you know, going to shoot in April of 2020. And I filled out my contract and I was supposed to shoot my episode in May. And then COVID happened and they said, you know what, we're cutting the number of directors and you're not going to be one of them. But at the end of that, Darren Star did say, I owe you one. And I don't forget that. And I am working on another Darren Star show now called Uncoupled. So we're supposed to go into season 2 of Uncoupled. And, you know, maybe if he'll give me another chance, that I feel comfortable doing, because I think I wonder if what I would be good at is communicating with the actors, you know, like, am I good enough at that? So having already knowing the actors, I think was just such a leg up, you know, for a new director who was an AD. So if I go into a movie, I don't really know these people, you know, like, can I do the shots? Absolutely. Can I make a plan? Absolutely. Do I know what I'm doing? Can I lead a set? Yes. But like communicating with the actors as a director, I want to make sure I'm good at that. And so I kind of want to cut my teeth on a show that I'm already on, you know. And as far as an AD needing to know shot composition, you know, like there's sometimes honestly on the set, I'll be like, I don't know what those next shots are. I'm just going to roll with the punches here and do my best to communicate. I have noticed sometimes, oh, this camera is on the wrong side of the line. I can explain that if you want, but you know, like I'll notice things that are kind of, you know, like maybe not correct, and I'll go and maybe ask the script supervisor, does this look correct, you know, or the DP, you know, sort of behind the scenes. So there are things that I feel like I can be helpful with, but you don't have to be great at knowing the shots and things like that to be a good AD, because you just need to sort of communicate and know it's not. I mean, the more you know, the better, honestly. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about, but it's not like vital. But for directing, yeah, for sure.
How do you see movies now when you watch a movie? I mean, you've been doing this, and what do you see when you watch a
See
movie?
the extras. Oh my god, I watch the extras and it drives me crazy. I don't want to watch the extras, but I can't help watching the extras. I was like, oh, that guy already went through once from the other direction, like, or that's the same person. If they cut to the other shot, you're going to see them in both shots at the same time. You're going to see that person. So I look at that and see mistakes. But you know what happens when I see a mistake? Nothing. The show is fine. So it also makes me feel better of like, if I make a mistake with extras or something like that, it's not the end of the world. You just sort of do your best. But yeah, I watch that a lot. But otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty able to I'm able to watch a Marvel movie and and love it. I'm not obsessed too much, but yeah, extras is my downfall. I watch them all the time. And I've infected my family too. They watch them too now.
How could you not? I mean, that's such
They're
a
more forgiving. They know how hard how hard it is to concentrate, to like work with extras, so that they're more forgiving.
yeah, that's the most kind of like chaotic part of a set, because
Totally.
the extras always live in their own little world, and
Yeah,
it's
bless them. I mean, I learned pretty early on, even as a background, they called it the background PA. As a background PA, it was all about bees with honey, honestly. And I'd be really nice. And then I would make them feel bad for me. If I needed something from them, I'd be like, you guys, my boss is so upset with me. I have to get you guys to set right now. And they would run, like, because they liked me and they were like, come on, let's do it. And you sort of, and I still do that as a first AD. I'll try and, make them laugh or appreciate them or thank them or welcome them, when I do safety announcements for them about, the safe exits, you know what I mean? And you just try and love them. But sometimes, yeah, chaotic is a good word for it.
I had such a traumatic I fucked up once where I big funeral scene, and I don't remember what happened, but I guess I had heard that okay, send them back to base camp a mile
Okay.
away,
Yeah.
and they're gone. And then the first AD's like, where are the extras?
Uh-oh.
And we I'm everybody's scrambling to get them back on set. And like
No.
it was just like this nightmare. And he's just like, okay, just shoot it without them. And
Well, he sounds great. But yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I have definitely gotten to, you know, I I would say it's rare. I hope that people work with me understand it's rare that I would ever yell, because like I said, I only get upset when people aren't doing, their basic job. I don't expect miracles, but I expect listening and paying attention, that kind of thing.
for sure. And then my final question is like in the industry wide transition to digital and even just COVID, how have things kind of changed in terms of how you approach a shoot, or has anything changed at all?
I have to say, when you say digital, do you mean like the digital cameras or like
Yeah, yeah.
oh, yeah. The only thing that, like digital for me, it's like we don't have to wait for the camera to reload. Awesome. We don't have to worry about the film physically, getting lost because they have a backup before they send it anywhere. Awesome. So for me, nothing but good. Things go a little bit quicker. Um, I've had directors who wanted to use film, fairly recently, and I'm kind of grumble a little bit because I feel like there have been enough experiments where people would be like, can you tell the difference between what you're looking for in this digital? And they can't. So let's just go digital. But I try and respect whatever the director wants. So that is, if anything, better for me. Streaming as opposed to any kind of studio, kind of no difference that I've noticed, at least it's all about who you work with, and the people haven't changed. It's still the producer, the UPM, the director, yada yada. So for me, that's all kind of the same. I will say technology wise, what was a huge change, because again, I'll reiterate, I've been doing this a long time, is that cell phones changed everything, because people started producing stuff last minute because they could. Because when I started, you had to make a plan that had to stick, because you had already told 500 people where to be when, like days earlier, because that's how you get people on the phone. When they have a computer in their hand, you can tell them 10 hours beforehand. So the key second when I started out was on set, setting background, working with the first AD, because they had a call sheet that was set and settled the day before. We weren't going to get new script pages. We weren't going to find a new location. We weren't going to have an actor that was hired at the last second like we do now. So the key seconds were doing totally different things. Now you don't even see the key second. When I came up, key second was on the set, and now you don't even see them because they are so busy dealing with things that happen last minute. It is normal now that actors will get hired the day before or 2 days before. I mean, with COVID, it got a little bit better. It is normal that we will get new script pages that will have new locations or new props or new whatever. Oh, sorry about my city noise. It is normal that, we'll get these last minute scripts, last minute hire of actors, last minute props, and all that stuff needs to be dealt with by an AD, because the first AD is still shooting, we're going to shoot. So that's why the key second, we don't see them anymore. It's because of cell phones and last minute stuff that's able to happen now. So that was the big technology change as far as my experience.
That is my interview with Jennifer Truelove. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for listening to Junket. Got some really exciting guests lined up, so if you want to keep up to date, you can follow @JunketPod on Twitter or me @evian.official on Instagram. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.